Now, for analysis of all this, we turn to retired Lieutenant General H.R. McMaster. He's a Hoover Institution Senior Fellow. He served as National Security Advisor during the first Trump administration, and he's got a new book out, At War with Ourselves, My Tour of Duty in the Trump White House. General McMaster, what's your assessment, initial assessment of this operation?
Well, John, it was extraordinarily successful. It was of course put together for a limited purpose, which is kind of the definition of a raid, which is a military operation with limited purpose, short duration, and planned withdrawal. And those three sites were struck successfully without, as the chairman said today, us not even be able to identify one shot against us. It indicates, an extremely high degree of training and professionalism across all of our services to be able to do something like this, halfway around the world.
As you heard Secretary Rubio say, there's no plans for anything more, but the Iranians get a vote in this too. What range of possible retaliation or response do you expect?
Well, John, Nick covered some of those, but we know because they've done all of this to us in the past, right? We know they have a worldwide terrorist network that they could activate. Remember in 92 and 94 and the attacks in Argentina, for example, assassinations around the world, including in Europe, assassination attempts in the United States. So they could activate that terrorist network. They could try to strike U.S. bases, U.S. personnel. I think they would really pay an extremely high price if they do that. They may try to do it again, of course, through their proxies, the Hashd-e-Shaabi militias, for example, in Iraq, or maybe the Houthis could launch missiles, maybe at U.S. Locations or something like that. They have a range of shorter range missiles available to them. So they could strike U.S. bases using those missiles and maybe some drones, or as Nick mentioned, they could go after, as they did previously as well, Saudi Arabian and other energy and oil and gas infrastructure in the region. They could try to conduct cyber attacks. They did that against us, right, in 2007. So I think that they will try to lash out in many of these ways, because of the ideology of the regime and its permanent hostility, right, to the great Satan, us. And Israel, who they are determined to wipe off the map, which is why you couldn't allow that regime to have the most destructive weapons on earth.
You mentioned short-range missiles. There are a number of bases that are nearby, close to Iran, closer than Israel. Is there any security concerns about the U.S. Facilities and the U.S. Troops?
Yeah, there are, and I'm sure that those defensive measures are being taken. I think what we have to realize is that these are our servicemen and women are not waiting there to be victims, and they are part of an integrated joint force, like you saw on display with this raid. You might recall when U.S. forces have been attacked in Syria, for example, when the Russian mercenaries attacked those forces in 2018, and they got a heck of a lot more than they bargained for, because you're not just attacking a little base, you're attacking all of those joint capabilities, aircraft, long-range precision fires capabilities that are land-based, that can be brought to bear in defense of our troops in those situations.
General, you're familiar with the president's decision-making process. What do you make of the fact that he said he could take as much as 2 weeks to make a decision, and then it became sort of 2 days?
Well, President Trump is not capricious with the use of force. Like, he doesn't want to do it. He always wants to get a deal, and so I think it was just an 11th hour attempt for him to try to convince the Iranians to take the deal, which is no enrichment, dismantlement of their program. And then what he did, I'm sure what happened is he faced Iranian intransigence. Remember, as the Iranian foreign minister was meeting with European counterparts, and the bellicose nature of the messaging associated with that. And so I think this has, again, a lot to do with the ideology of this regime, which has as one of its features a permanent hostility to not only us and Israel, but also their Arab neighbors and really, the rest of the world. I mean, this is a regime that is full of hatred and vitriol. And I think President Trump knew that the negotiations weren't going to get anywhere until he used force against this nuclear program.
You heard Nick say that some analysts are saying this is proof to the Iranians that they need a nuclear deterrence. Is this something the United States might have to do in several years in the future?
No, well, it's possible, but I think it is an enduring objective. It has been an enduring objective of multiple administrations to block Iran's path to a nuclear weapon. But previous administrations didn't do enough about it, and many of them deluded themselves I mean, a lot of people are going back to the Iran nuclear deal, which was a fundamentally flawed agreement, John, because it just didn't have, you had all the sunset clauses. It didn't have an adequate inspection and verification regime. And of course, what it did is it gave Iran sanctions relief. They filled up their coffers. They strengthened their ring of fire around Israel, which they activated on October 7th, 2023. And they could continue their nuclear program in a clandestine manner. That Fordow site, there's a reason why it's 300 feet underground, and they try to keep it secret, is because they were continuing the nuclear program. And of course, no country needs uranium enriched to 60%, right? Anything over 20% is for other than civilian purposes. And there are 23 countries around the world who have peaceful nuclear programs and who don't enrich uranium. So it's clear what the Iranians were doing. I don't think you need a sophisticated intelligence analytical approach to realize what Iran was doing.
General H.R. McMaster, thank you very much.
Thanks, John.